All right, today we're going to paint a really simple hummingbird. I'm doing this on a black canvas, but you can do it on a white canvas too, or any color background that you want. Just make sure if you want to paint it any color you want, or you can even just leave your canvas blank just to practice painting the hummingbird. So it's really up to you. I'm going to use a Filbert, and this is like a smallish one. You can go anywhere from like a 6 to a 4 or an 8. You want to go a little bigger. And then a couple of round brushes, one that's kind of medium to small and one that's a little smaller. So that is what I'm starting with. I'm going to start with the Filbert first, and we're going to go ahead and start with the shape of the body. And I'm going to do that with a very, very light blue color. So I'm going to use blue and white mixed together. I'm going to make it pretty light. Super duper light. So make sure you have a lot of white mixed in. And I'm going to find the middle of the canvas. So find the middle, just kind of come from either end and bring your fingers together like a little crosshair. And then from there, we're going to build the body. So I'm going to pull down from that space on a diagonal, like that. And I want the top of the shape to be a little bit bigger than the bottom of the shape. So the oval, it's kind of like a little bit of an egg type shape. So it's a little bit bigger at the top. And then it gets a little smaller at the bottom as it moves on a diagonal. And then the top is going to be just making like a round shape coming off the top of that. But you can make the circle connect to the oval at the top really smooth like that, so that there's not like a harsh transition between the shapes. And then at the bottom, it can be a little bit more pronounced. And I can always change the shape, so you can adjust the shape as much as you need to. So I always kind of start small, look at it, check it out, and be like, all right, does that look good? And I can always change it even after I keep going and painting. Well, the tail is going to extend straight from the back. So notice how the back of the bird is kind of has a little bit of wiggle in it, but it's more of a straight line. The tail is also going to come kind of out of that top line there, just pulling out into this space. And I can just pull a couple little brush strokes like that. Nothing too crazy. And then the wings are going to come right where the head meets the back of the body. So I want one wing to pull up, almost vertical, but a slight diagonal. And then the other wing's going to come down just a little bit on the back. And this one's going to pull much more on a diagonal. And it's going to go a little further out. And so you have just those two lines for now. And then you can make more lines that are stacked to build the wings. So I can have one that goes a little further, and then I can have another one coming in, and you can even kind of bend them just a little bit, like a smiley face, just really slightly though. And then I'm just going to keep stacking as I pull down those lines. They're getting shorter and shorter. So it's just using the edge of the Filbert. And then they're going to get a little smaller and shorter and smaller and shorter until I get all the way down to the back of the bird. And these can go longer again if I need to. You know, you can always adjust. And then same thing with these, but they're a little further away, so they're not going to be as many. So I'm going to do a few. Same idea. Longer at the top of the top line, and then as they come down, they get a little shorter as you stack and build. And try to relax. Don't take this too seriously. That will help you out. And this is just beginner, like we're not trying to go for anything too realistic. We're just playing. Now, once you have that in, I'm going to put the Filbert, in a water cup or clean it right away, however you want to care for your brush. I'm honestly don't take the best care of my brushes, so I'm not always the best person to listen to about that specifically, but If you keep them in the water, at least the paint won't dry out on them. So you got that. Now I'm going to get the medium round brush. You could use the small one too if you wanted to, but I feel like I want to get a little bit of a longer line, and I'm pretty confident that I can get a small line with this brush. So use whichever brush feels more comfortable for you to use. Whatever. I'm going to do the beak because I want to have that in there for the spacing, just so that I can see the spacing. And it's going to come out of the face, like right a little bit on the lower part of the circle here. So we want to imagine that this right here is the top of the head. So see how I can adjust the shape a little bit, make it a little more pointed at the front. I'm going to make a little point here that comes down, and then it's going to pull under like this. And we can even smooth that out a little bit. So notice I made a little point come off of it, not right out the top, but a little bit down towards the chest. And then we're going to extend the beak out of that. So you can even rotate the canvas a little bit if you need to. I kind of like to move it so that the position is a little easier for me to get the line I want. And I'm just doing a really light touch. It's going to pull from, I'm just still using the same color, just light blue. It's going to pull from the face really lightly. And I want it to be a little thicker at first. And then as I pull out, the line is going to get a little thinner. Just like that. Okay, so I can always go and I want it to be just a little thicker. And what's great about the black canvas is that if you want to make it a little thinner, change it a little bit, you can always paint black around the edges of that shape to clean it up, make it look smaller, or even redo it. So you're good. Now, while we have the shape, which is great. Now, what I want to do is go ahead and use my smallest brush to add some detail to it. Now, I'm going to go with my blue first with no white. So I just want, now it should look a little darker. And I can begin to tap a little bit of blue on the face, like just around the head, like this. You just want to do some like little dabs of paint. You can make them like bigger brush strokes, like little feathery, like pulls, or you could just dab like little dots. So it's kind of up to you. I feel like the feathers will look a little smaller if you do smaller little dabs, but I like to do a little bit of this, like little gentle pulls, because I just feel like it's fun to do that. So I'm going to do that. Notice I'm going along the chest here. And it just starts to give it some texture. Now you can make bigger splotches, like, ooh, I can do like this and just make it a little bit more loose. Really up to you. I just want to get some of that blue around the face, maybe like right around the face here. You know, just play. So fun to do. I say that a lot because I think it's really important that you have fun while you're doing it. Otherwise, if we take it a little too seriously, it can become not so fun. And I kind of feel like, well, what's the point if you're not having fun with it? It's like, I don't know, not cool. Like, what are we doing here? This is supposed to be fun. So let it be fun. Let yourself have fun. Now I kind of want to outline the bird's back and everything so that the feathers and all of this have a little bit of definition, like along the top of just the body shape. So that's kind of helpful. And then I also want to figure out where my eye is. So the eye is going to go in line with the beak. So if you find your beak comes straight across into the face from that point, and then just make a little circle. Going to be your eye. We'll make it darker later, but it's easy to reposition it if you don't like what happened there. Now I also want to have some green, so I'm not going to clean the brush. I'm just going to add yellow and white to my blue to create like a light green. And then I'm going to dab. You can dab that wherever you want. I might put a little bit in the wings, like here. I want this wing to come down on the back of the bird a little bit here. And then I'm just tapping inside the body. Maybe I put a little bit on the top of the head here, but I'm kind of keeping it in the middle of the body and maybe just a little bit on the wings. But you can put wherever you want. That's the fun of painting. You get to customize it. And then if you don't like it or you want to change it up a little bit, maybe add more blue and you can go darker again. So if you feel like the green is a little too bright and you want more of a dark color, or you just want to change your shade of green, you know, add more blue and then begin to dab with that as well. So it's very easy to change it up. Very easy. You can even do more of a blue, heavy on the blue with a little bit of yellow and a lot of white, which will create kind of a turquoise color. So that could be pretty too. You want to do some like turquoise in there. Kind of a light green blue. I'm going to do a little bit of that around the eye. You can put it wherever you want. And we can always come back and add more, which we will. So I always say, you know, don't overdo any one color. Just put it in there and be like, all right, that's fun. And then clean your brush because we're going to go into some different shades here. So we started with our blue, then we added yellow to create green. And now we're going to go ahead and use blue and red to create more of a purple vibe. So I'm still using the small brush, using blue and red. And I want to go kind of heavy on the red. So it's like less blue, more red for more of a warm shade of purple. And then if you add white to that, you're going to be able to see your purple come to life a little bit. And honestly, the Liquitex Basics doesn't make the best purple. So if you wanted something a little more vibrant, you could use something else. But I just try to stick to these colors for when I do YouTube, just to keep it simple. And you're still going to get purple. It'll be good. And then I'm just going to layer some of that purple on those wings. And I still want to be able to see some of the blue, so it's fine if you still see that. But just notice how I'm just dabbing it over the blue of the wings. Gonna look pretty. And I want the tail to have that. So I'm gonna pull some of that in the tail. You can even just use any shade, any color you really wanted for this. You don't have to do what I'm doing. But I like the way that looks. Super pretty. And you can add that on other parts of the bird. Like maybe I want some purple over here or on the back of the bird right here. You know, it's not like you can't put it other places. Maybe I want to put some on the face right here. Little dabs though. You can always add more to the wings. And then when you're done with that though, you can go in and add some darker purple. So if you just use the red and blue, no white, or a very small amount of white or something, you're going to get a dark kind of shadow color. So we do want to have a little bit of a shadow color going for some stuff. I want to add some darkness around where the beak comes to the face. So you can even make like a little V shape right there with some dabbing. And I can go like onto the face a little bit to create some dark color. I can go along the back of the neck, right under the back wing here. I can do a little bit on the tail, like little streaks to create some shadow. And you can use some of this in the wings too, like right in between the blue and purple to just create some dark color in there. So this is like really easy to add. Just play with it. And don't let it take over the design though. You want it to be there, but you don't want it to be like the only thing you see or anything like that. So we're really just putting it in there, putting it in the wings, just following those lines. You can put it at the bottom of the bird here, just a little bit. Now, one thing about this is that you get a lot of contrast already for the bird against the background. So, you know, you can keep the bird pretty bright throughout and it's still going to be good. But I might want to add like maybe a little bit of white to that so it's not too dark because I do want it to stand out against the black. And I want to add a little bit of a shadow on the underside of the beak. So I'm going to go with that medium purple on the underside of the beak. So you could still see it against the black, but it creates a shadow. So this is why we're using this color. It's not too dark. You don't want it to look black, otherwise it just won't have, and you can put that like under those little wing marks that we made on the underside of those little marks, wherever you want to see it. I'm going to clean the brush. And then last but not least, maybe I want to see some red or pink in there. So I'm going to do red and white, and make sure you clean your brush off before you do this so that it's not too hard to see. And you can play with whatever shades you like, but I'm going to do some of that like on the chest here. Maybe I do some of that like on the cheeks or on the like the neck. I think that looks pretty. Just doing a little bit on here. And maybe even put a little bit in the wings. Just right on top of the purple. And it just kind of brightens the purple up. So it still kind of blends in with the purple, but it just brightens it a little bit, which looks fun. So I wouldn't overdo, you know, because we already have our green in there. We have our blue. We don't want it anything to kind of take over to 100%. Maybe I put some down here. And even on the tail, you know, put it where you want. It's your painting. Gotta play. And then I want to add, I'm going to use a little bit of black in the eye. So get some black on your brush. And we're just going to add the black in the middle of the eye to make it really jump out. You can also use that to darken up any of those purple sections. Like if you need a little bit more darkness in some of those spots, maybe just a few little taps, little brush strokes to make it extra dark, maybe like under the tail or on the face somewhere where you want it to be extra dark. Totally up to you. I'm going to be really subtle with it. I just did the eye and I did just a little bit on the wings. And then I'm going to clean the brush again. I do want to create almost like a ring around the eye with white. And then I'm going to go around it with a dark color after that. So let's do some highlighting though. We're going to get the white on our brush. And I'm going to almost outline the eye really lightly with white. I'm just barely touching. So where a small brush comes in kind of handy. And then I can highlight the wings too. So I can just go in and whoosh, whoosh, maybe put a little bit on top of that pink. So you're just adding to what's there. I'm not trying to cover it all the way. I feel like sometimes people go in and do highlights and it's like they kind of cover everything and it gets kind of defeats the purpose. But I can go in and add like some white to the bird in some spots just to make it stand out a little more. So like maybe around the face over here, maybe like on the top of the head a little bit, or just on the body, in the wings, on the tail, wherever you want to see it. And then you can even use like pure yellow. So maybe some of my, I just want to enhance some of my green, make that look a little more popped. But it helps because it pulls it a little more bright there. Same thing with taking a little bit of that yellow in the wing. I can do that. Like on the out part right there. And then you can always do more with the blue too. So if you want to just do the blue, or even like a dark green where you have blue with a little bit of yellow, or kind of a darker green, you can go in and add some of that. Break things up. I want to take some of that dark green around the white part that I put around the dark center of the eyes. So I'm just going to go around with the green and kind of darken it around the white part of the eye. And then I can add that, you know, like wherever I want to create some more contrast. And then maybe I make some more light blue again. So you can go in with like white and blue. Maybe I go a little lighter than my first shade though. And then I want to make sure I put like a highlight at the top of the beak. So it should look a little lighter than my first shade so that it shows up as a highlight on there. And then just go to the top, really soft with the small brush and add. And you can do this with pure white too, but I wanted to do like a light blue. Now the beak looks a little bit like more glowy popping out right there, which looks fun. Again, I can always go back with either like light blue or white to add more little highlight dots to the bird. Maybe I do a little bit on the back of the bird right here. Maybe I do a little bit of white on the chest on top of the pink. So you're kind of just highlighting those like colors, which is fun. But you can also go darker again. So like maybe I want some parts that look more like pure red. I can go in with that too. So it's a dance between your lighter and darker shades. Just go in there and dab until you're happy. I mean, no one knows except for you, because it's your art. So you are going to be the one that's like, I like this or I don't like this. And you have to be able to just have that authority and know what you want to add and when you want to add more or when you want to stop. Maybe I go back into my purple a little bit. I want to soften that black a little bit back here. It got a little harsh, so I'm going to feather it out just a little bit. I'm kind of just going over the black to soften it. And then you also want to take a little bit of white. So just clean your brush whenever you switch your colors. Take a little bit of white and then just dab it right on the inside of the black part of the eye. I like to do 2 little dots, but you can just do 1. Well, it's really up to you if you want to do it differently. And then last but not least, maybe you want to have some orange on your bird. I don't really care that much about having orange, but I'm going to put a little just so you can have all the colors of the rainbow. And you can choose, maybe I want to change this into more of an orange down here, or put some orange in the wing in addition to the yellow. So I'll put a little bit up here. Now you have all the colors of the rainbow though, and you can do like a full-on like rainbow hummingbird, or you can just stick to the colors you like, but at least you know how to make all the colors and how you can put them just as an idea. So you have it, and now you get to take charge and play with it. I might add just a little more pink here in the wing, but you got to get to the point where you just let it go. I mean, these things can really go on and on and on, which is great, but you don't want to overdo it, because it does start to get weird and it might actually start to look not so good if you do overdo too much. Put a little orange in the back wing just for some balance. A little bit. Maybe I'll even put a little bit on the tail. And then, you gotta at some point let it go. I might do just a little more dark purple, just red and blue. in a couple spots, maybe right under the chin here to create some dark colors. Or even again around the eye, on top of that green, just kind of work that in. And you know, it gets kind of addicting to do this because it's so fun. But you'll know when it's time. And again, you can always go back to our very first color, just that very first same shade of light blue. I mean, even want to add a little bit back into the tail just to be like, you know what? The blue looks pretty too. And you can even enhance the blue from your first brush strokes around the edges and like clean it up with another layer. And dab over any of the green that may have gotten a little too much, or just if anything looks too chunky and you want to soften it, or anything looks too dark and you want to brighten it, that light blue is going to be good because it will kind of help with cleaning those things up. Maybe I want to shape my beak a little bit more right there. So all of these things are the little things that I like to do in the end. I kind of just go in and either ramp things up or tone them down depending on what's needed in that spot. Like, does it need to be more highlighted or does it need to be brought down a notch? You know, and it's different for everyone. Now, once you have this in here, you can go crazy and do some stuff in the background, like some splatter paint or whatever you want to do. So that kind of can create some energy, and I'll show you some ideas. So you can take that small brush and maybe you take some of the turquoise, for example, and then I can just like make little lines like this coming out, where you can like wiggle the brush just to create some movement in the background. That's kind of fun. Or you can just do like little dots, or you can do splattered paint. For splattered paint, I would suggest a flat brush. I like using a flat brush. And then you can get your brush a little bit wet, maybe take some of that. I'm just going to still use the turquoise. Get it wet so that the binder breaks down a little bit. And then you can just take it and splatter a little bit on your canvas. So that gives it a kind of fun energy. Like maybe you want to see that happening, or maybe you just want to keep it like what we did and not put any splatter on there. So you got to do what feels right for you. And if you don't like anything that you've done, you can always just take a brush and be like, I don't like those little wiggly lines, or maybe you like some of them, but not all of them. Then you can paint over and you can clean up the splatter paint too, if you didn't like how some of that turned out. So there's that. There's always more you can do. I'm just showing, kind of going with the splatter paint and taking those little lines out, but I like having like all these different ideas that you can play with and just feel like you can go crazy. It's literally the best.